Man, Talladega brought big excitement, big intensity, big crashes, and another photo finish. Oh, let's talk about Dega. Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Jet. Welcome back to episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop, recapping the second race in the round of 12 of the NASCAR playoffs. Talladega Super Speedway in the books, and boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Lots of exciting racing, the huge one, the massive one, and a photo, oh so close finish. Now, we were wondering, how will this race play out? Will it be like what we were used to seeing in terms of drivers conserving in stage number one, just trying to make it to the end of stage one by conserving fuel, or not? Well, according to Jeff Gluck, I saw a post that he made on Twitter on how some drivers, some teams, if they get to the front, they will force them to not save. And let me tell you, stage one, unreal. That was the craziest stage I've ever seen at Talladega. Ever, even including the Gen 6 era. I mean, we saw 3-wide, 4-wide racing for multiple laps. Not 1 or 2 laps, I would say 20 or so laps. We saw 3-wide, 4-wide racing continuously, and the whole stage was clean. I mean, not a major accident took place at all in that whole stage. It was clean, solid, exciting racing, super speedway racing, and it was incredible to watch. And it was evident by the lead change count. I mean, this race had 66 lead changes between 24 different leaders. So lots of lead changes between a variety of different drivers. But one thing remained the same was Ford. And that, once again, they basically controlled the tempo for majority of the race. Stage one, like I said, was very clean. Chris Buescher would end up winning stage number one after it was majorly dominated by the front row duo of mainly Michael McDowell, Tyler Gillen, but later on in the mix you had the Team Penske trio of Blaney, Logano, and Cindric also. But stage two took a more strategic route. Stage one was all about aggressive, hard-nosed racing. Stage two was a bit more strategic. Lots of drivers doing different strategies with green flag pit stops. Saw a lot of different drivers like Shane Van Gisbergen and a couple Chevy drivers take control over the race for a good portion of time. But coming to the end of stage two, the trial bowl is one of the trickiest parts of the racetrack. We saw another big time accident there, taking out some playoff contenders. Coming to the start finish line for stage number two, Alex Bowman gives a bad shove to Ryan Blaney, sends him sideways hard into the outside wall, collecting Ross Chastain in the process. Joe Logano got a bit of damage, as well as Denny Hamlin. Ryan Blaney would finish penultimate or second to last, while Ross Chastain would end up finishing dead last. I gotta say this with Ryan Blaney, his luck on the super speedways is one extreme or the other. He either wins or crashes head on into a wall. There's really no in between with Blaney. He either wins or crashes hard. So unfortunately, it was one of those days where Blaney's day was going to end up in the wall. When stage three began, at the beginning half of it, it was relatively calm. Again, you're still trying to set yourself up for that final sprint at the finish line. Bubba Wallace and Kyle Busch, they led stage three. They began stage three up front, but then we had pit stops come into play. The Fords immediately took over once again, and the first 4 or 5 positions were all taken over by the Ford drivers. We had with 50 to go, again, just that aggression picked back up once again. We saw 3-wide racing virtually from the beginning towards the very back of the pack was just 3-wide, 3-wide, 3-wide. It was beautiful to see. But as the laps started to wind down, the pushes get more aggressive, the intensity picks up, and ultimately a bad shove is going to cause a big one, and it ended up being the huge one. 5 laps ago, Joe Logano pushing Keselowski. They have too much momentum. Keselowski hits Cindric, who was leading, gets him spinning around, and the big one, the massive one occurs. A Cup Series record for the most amount of cars involved in one wreck, I think at Talladega, I believe. 28 cars, I think in the modern era, 28 cars were involved in this crash. I mean, you can throw as many drivers in the mix. Bubba Wallace, Daniel Hemrick, Logano, Elliott, Briscoe, Buescher. I mean, I could go on and on and on about the drivers that were involved. I think Tyler Reddick. I mean, so many playoff drivers, so many good cars were involved in this one. And we had to go to overtime. Now, one of those drivers was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He had a giant hole on the left side of his car. Thought, okay, will that have any sort of aerodynamic advantage? It really did not. When we got to overtime, it was Keselowski on the inside, Stenhouse on the outside, with Larson behind Keselowski and Byron behind Stenhouse, and they were virtually locked. It was going to be 2 lanes. No one was pulling out to make a lane. That part was a bit annoying, but coming to the finish line, Keselowski got a good shove from Kyle Larson, actually got out ahead of Stenhouse, but instead of going up to block Stenhouse, He stays to the inside. He doesn't, come up in front of Stenhouse, stays to the inside, off a turn 4. Then Byron gives Stenhouse a big shove, pushes Stenhouse to the lead, and coming towards the start finish line, Byron pulls out at the last second, a 3-wide photo finish at the line, and by 6/1000ths of a second, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is the winner, taking home, I believe, his 4th checkered flag of his Cup Series career, his first since the 2023 Daytona 500. An absolutely wild, incredible finish here at Talladega. Here's a look at the race results. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wins, leading only 19 laps. Second place is Keselowski. Third is Byron. How about Kyle Larson? 4th. I mean, Kyle Larson, the super speedways, for him to finish in 4th, that's a win, I think, in his book. And Eric Jones, how about that for Legacy Moto Club, rounds up the top 5. 6 is Bell. 7th, Justin Haley. 8th is Austin Dillon. Bubba Wallace in 9th. And Denny Hamlin, who needed some much needed points after the abysmal start he had to the playoffs, in 10th place. 11th is teammate Truex. How about 12th, Cody Ware, Ty Gibbs, Carson Hocevar, and Shane Van Gisbergen, the top 15. A couple other notables like Alex Bowman in 16th. Kyle Busch, who I think was in 5th place at the white flag, he jumped out of line. No one went with him, and he went right to the very back. Finishes in the 19th position. Tyler Reddick, the top 20. Some other notables: Daniel Suarez in 26. Now, Daniel Suarez, he had to basically start at the rear and do a pass-through due to pre-race inspection failure. Well, he got back out on the racetrack and did one of the dumbest moves I've seen in a while. Almost pulled a Kevin LePage, if you remember that, where he came back on the racetrack. He was much slower than everybody else. Cars were going past him. Then he decides to pull up right in front of BJ McLeod. Suarez goes into the wall, and he was able to recover, but it basically took him the entire race to get back up to the front. And even then, he still finished 1 lap down. And this was, what, lap 10 or so? It was, again, no other way to say this, a very stupid move by Suarez, who needed points, some much valuable points, and threw it all the way. Any opportunity that in stage 1, stage 2 by making a move like that. Anyways, Chase Elliott 29th, Chase Briscoe in 30th, Cindric 32nd, tough break for him because he had a very, very fast car. 33rd, his teammate Joe Logano, Harrison Burton, Ryan Preece, Josh Berry, Michael McDowell in 37th, who led the most laps with 42. 38th, Daniel Hemrick, and Ryan Blaney and Ross Chastain, like I said, bring up the 40-car field. Here's a look at the playoff grid heading into the final race in the round of 12 at the Charlotte Roval. William Byron, he is locked into the round of 8 due to having a big enough points gap where even if he finishes dead last, he is still locked in. Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson, pretty safe, plus 57, plus 52 respectively. How about Denny Hamlin, up to plus 30 after the start that he had to the round of 12, now up plus 30, a really good cushion. 5th is Alex Bowman, plus 26, Blaney, plus 25, and Tyler Reddick now back above the playoff grid, but not a big gap, plus 14. Chase Elliott holds the final spot ahead of Joey Logano at plus 13. Suarez minus 20, Cindric minus 29, and Chase Briscoe minus 32. Thoughts on this race? Let's get the negatives out of the way, and that was NASCAR's officiating. This damaged vehicle policy, either completely overhaul it or get rid of it completely, because this is one of the dumbest rules that NASCAR has out there. It is so inconsistent. Last week at Kansas, Josh Berry got towed back to pit lane and was out of the race. I was under the impression that, okay, the rule says if you have to get towed back, you're done for the day. Well, after Talladega and after that massive pileup with 5 to go, I saw drivers like Chase Briscoe and Chase Elliott being towed back to their pit stall, and the crew was able to work on the cars and they were able to get back out on the racetrack. But what happened with Josh Berry? Why couldn't he continue, but the 14 and the 9 could? Makes no sense. And this is the issue with the damaged vehicle policy. For a rule that you would think would be clear, it is the most complicated rule, one of the most complicated rules out there, because no one knows what is the rule, because it is so inconsistent. On one day, it's like, yeah, you can do that. But on another race, it's like, no, you can't do that. What is the rule? Either overhaul it so that it's crystal clear, or get rid of the rule entirely and bring back, okay, fix it, get back out whenever you feel like it. One of those two things. Regardless, the damaged vehicle policy needs to be addressed during the offseason because it cannot continue like this any longer. There have been too many examples this season, even last season, but specifically this season, of how this rule has been exploited and how much this rule needs to be fixed. That's all I gotta say about this rule, because I hate it because it is so freaking confusing. As for the racing, that, in my eyes, I think was the best next-gen race I've ever seen on a super speedway. I think so. At the very least, Talladega, maybe Super Speedway as a whole, not including Atlanta. I'm talking about Daytona and Talladega. But that was a fantastic race. Awesome racing, great strategy, great 3-wide, 4-wide racing. Not too chaotic with the crashes, besides that 5 to go massive one. But it was, in my eyes, your typical Talladega race, but it was a masterclass. I really enjoy that. Also give props to NBC. They did a phenomenal job, especially Diffie, of how they called that race. I thought they did a great job with it. Again, going basically flag to flag with no full screen commercials during green flag racing. Really don't have much to complain about this race. I give this an 8-9 out of 10. It wasn't like Atlanta was in February. That's a 10 out of 10. This one was really good. That's why I give it an 8 to 9 out of 10, around that range. But it was, regardless, a fantastic race, and I really enjoy that. But you take a look at some of these drivers below the cut line now. Joe Logano, 13 below the cut line. Ouch. Daniel Suarez in deep trouble. Chase Briscoe, I mean, he's dead last, but he is good on road courses, so who knows what could happen to Charlotte Roval with that new layout format. It can be interesting. I'm a bit concerned because the next gen car doesn't do good on road courses, especially at the Charlotte Roval, so I'm a bit concerned on how the quality of racing will be. But I'm interested to see how this playoff format will shake out, as I will be there in person. Yes, I'm not going to be here. I will be at the racetrack for Saturday and Sunday, recapping everything that happened at the race. So I'm very excited to be in Charlotte in person. Never been there in person, so I'm excited to see how that race turns out. But what are your thoughts on this race? Let me know in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you not? Huge congratulations to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Somehow, I still don't know how he was able to keep going with that giant hole on the side of his car, but congrats to him. No surprise to see him up there. We know with Stenhouse, we know how he is with the super speedways. He either wins the checker flag or takes home the steering wheel. One of the two. He's kind of like Blaney. Either wins or he wrecks. So for all of his wins to be on the super speedways, that's 4 now, I believe. 2 at Daytona, 2 at Talladega. Tells you how strong he is on these big drafting tracks. But like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on your thoughts on this race. Until next time, my name is Jett from MDK. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.